Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people of all ages, sexualities, and identities, and welcome back to another review. And this is another classic TV review. Today's classic TV review is none other than Red Dwarf. Have you ever wondered what it would be like if you were the last human being left scattered in space? And you're left all alone, the whole crew dead because of a tragic accident? Well, don't worry, because that's exactly what happens in this story. You have a young man named Lister and his buddy Rimmer, who are both cadets on a space freighter, and they both come into this accident in which Lister gets locked in stasis because he smuggled his pet cat aboard, and Rimmer and the rest of the crew get absolutely bombastic with dust. And because Rimmer is, of course, one of the senior management, it leaves poor Dave Lister with him for eternity throughout all of time and space. But luckily for Dave's sanity, Rimmer is not the only one aboard the space freighter. No, not by a long shot. There's the cat. A cat species evolved from his pet cat that now worship Lister as the great cat god. Along the way, they have all sorts of adventures, and they also pick up a robot named Crichton. Sorry, I just want to make sure I pronounced that right. Please don't kill me, Red Dwarf fans. Right, but yeah, Crichton. Crichton is like a mother figure to Lister, making sure things are ironed, making sure that Lister is fed, and most importantly, making sure that he does what he is told. Crew go back in time, forward in time, into alternate realities, and that is what makes this comedy so brilliant. Make things even more interesting, Dave's love interest is also technically his mother, as he has to go back in time because he finds out that he is a paradox. So he's his own father and his girlfriend's his own mum, and he puts himself back in time only for him in the future to have to do the same and then go back in time and do that. It's wibbly wobbly, timey wimey. Rimmer is constantly worried about his father's approval. Well, until we get to the modern series, in which we find out that his father is not really his real father, and in fact, Rimmer is related to an absolute gibbering farmer's man who his mum had been having a liaison behind his father's back. Crichton finally gets to go to Silicone Heaven after meeting a bunch of other synthesoids. We first meet Crichton, he's very uptight. He seems to have been left alone after manualing a crew of ladies who sadly pass away because they're stranded and marooned on a moon. Crichton doesn't know what else to do, and he is left in this constant cycle of being how he was enslaved to be. Eventually, after the help of Dave, he manages to go past his programming and becoming his own identity, becoming a robot of his own needs, his own wants, but also continuing to do the things he loves. Each season of this, and there's 12 seasons so far, each season of Red Dwarf handles a different issue. I like the idea how it handles Dave's loneliness, his longing, his wanting for a life that he knows he can't currently have. He has this kind of breakdown when he meets Kachansky, but she's with another version of him from 5 years in his future. Then meets Kachansky again, but this time she's from an alternate dimension in which her and her Dave have basically gotten along and things had settled down in the way she wanted. Just like rubbing salt into a wound, he has a dream in which Kachansky will finally be with him. But then he realizes that it's worth waking up to be with his friends again in the real world, not just in this imaginary world that he's made up. The cat also grows, though, I have noticed throughout this series. He becomes more open-minded to what the crew act like. When we first meet the cat, he's kind of like a rebellious teenager who does his own thing, doesn't care what people think, and really, really tries to like do his own jam. But as the stories progress and as each adventure goes on, the cat really starts to get this idea of um, self worth and also expressing his desire to help his mates. In Red Dwarf, they come across many, many different enemies, from robot Hitlers to getting caught up in the Kennedy assassination, having Elvis Presley sing the tune of Red Dwarf as they go into battle, finding a 1920s universe in which science and technology has been outlawed by a group of robots that have gone back in time to prevent the human race from overcoming them and finally conquering them. An honourable mention about Red Dwarf, which has to be mentioned, is the two Hollies. Honestly, the two Hollies are brilliant. The standalone characters, who are the computer screens in this series. Everyone's dead, Dave. They're dead, Dave. I'm telling you, everyone's dead, Dave. For their performances are just brilliant. I love how they kind of point out the obvious to the crew, and it really gives the audience the giggles that you want in this show. I also like the idea, like, I was recently watching the very last episode of Series 12, and I like the idea of Rimmer going to all these alternate universes and finding this idea of he doesn't feel like he belongs in any of these other universes, even if there's an advantage that he can gain. Doesn't only happen to him though, and I've noticed it's happened as like a little thread throughout Red Dwarf, where each character has kind of had a place where they could call home, but they know that there's no such place as home without each other. I also love how Crichton is always correcting Rimmer on protocol. 1249, sir. Stuff like that really draws this character and really draws you into this show. I wasn't too sure, I'll be honest. When I first saw Red Dwarf, I saw it years ago as like clips and snippets that a mate had showed me, and I knew for years that I had to watch this show. And now that I finally have, I really kind of understand what brings this fan base into loving it so much. This idea of a show that doesn't only show humanity, doesn't only just show respect for other beings and creatures and machines, but a show that really kind of borderline sits on the basis of what ifs. What if you lived your life this way? What if you lived your life that way? And how each universe and each individual person lives their life with this whole idea of, if I wasn't like this, I wouldn't be me. I mean, there's even an episode in the modern series in which Lister loses half of his like ability to care for things, and it just shows the point that I like that a lot of sci-fi makes about, if you took away people's personalities, some people might just turn into killing machines. They've got nothing holding them back. Although Rimmer is portrayed as very self-centered and very self-assured and very about himself, I like as well in the series that he really does start to prove to people, although he seems like he's just battering on about protocol, he does care. And for that reason, I give Red Dwarf a solid 10 out of 10. I just love this series. I love the premise of it. I love the sci-fi. I also like, and I will say this now, I am 100% convinced that they have been in a Doctor Who universe somewhere, with like the little nods, with little words, just continuum, and the little reference with robot that they faced in a episode in which they went on this planet. That robot had already been in Doctor Who, maybe just in the background of a Doctor Who episode, because Doctor Who does sometimes like to mess around with different aliens. But I'm convinced that you could do a Doctor Who and Red Dwarf crossover and it would work. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next Classic TV review. Until then, goodbye, stay beautiful, and don't be a smeghead.